Well, Lori Conway, aka Crazy Busy Mama, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me, Mark. I really appreciate it.
I think everybody wants to know who follows you, where and when and how did you get that nickname?
Oh my goodness. Well, crazy busy mama kind of comes naturally, I'll be honest. I'm a mom of four and I'm crazy busy. I mean, what other mama is not crazy busy? I think that kind of fits the mold of any mom that's out there. And so I don't know that that name is unique to me, Mark, but I have claimed that on social media as crazy busy mama here.
And so this was what? This was like 10 or 15 years ago that you guys began the business, as I understand it.
So we began the business about 15 years ago on online marketing that kind of morphed over time. As an entrepreneur, I have an entrepreneurial spirit. We have a tendency to have to pivot. And I'm sure you can relate to that as a business guy too. And as you pivot and you kind of learn, really crazy busy mama was birthed, to be honest with you, right outside of COVID times. And so when people were home and they were looking for things to do, guess what they were doing? They were scrolling on the phone. And so my 9-year-old at the time taught me how to use TikTok. And
Wow.
so, right, I had done Facebook and Instagram and all the social medias, and that's where we had done most of our business. And when TikTok came onto the scene, for me anyway, around COVID era, my 9-year-old showed me how to make my first TikTok, and that's where our crazy busy mama birth.
So, first of all, your 9-year-old's on TikTok. That's pretty amazing. But
Yes.
second of all, what is the like? What are your percentages? What part of you is TikTok, Facebook, et cetera? How would you describe the numbers?
Well, percentages, I mean, I'm pretty well rounded in just about every platform. I got my start with Crazy Busy Mama on TikTok, as explained just a moment ago, but it really started exploding on Facebook. And so about 2021, after being on TikTok for about a year and a half and having viral video after viral video and really getting known there, about 600,000 followers there, I decided to start kind of branching off of TikTok and started doing some platforms like Facebook. Facebook at the time was offering incentives to do Reels, which nobody had ever heard of at that time. And I thought, well, they're just like a little TikTok. Why not try it on Facebook? And as I started giving Facebook those Reels that they were so wanting, they started pushing my content out. And about a year after creating content for Crazy Busy Mama on Facebook, my following went up over 1 million on that platform.
So right now it's primarily Facebook, would you say, or is it equally dispersed among
I would
Instagram and the others?
I would say it's pretty equally dispersed between TikTok and Facebook. Instagram's probably my smallest platform, but that's about 400,000. So I wouldn't necessarily call that small. It's just one of my lower social medias.
So why do you think people responded? What is the need that you're filling in people's lives related to the dinner table?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, Crazy Busy Mama, again, was birthed during a time where people were home and they were looking for answers, and families were home together for the very first time, probably ever. Schools were closed. The life looked completely different. We had to figure out how to use the resource that we had in our pantry, in our refrigerator, to be able to cook meals. And so I started providing those quick, easy, simple meals as a crazy busy mama myself, and just kind of showing the process as I was making those meals and showing them that I was just like them. So I think it really took storm because people looked at me as a relatable person. There were days that, and there still are. So I won't say that I don't always put myself together to put my content together. I come as I am because I realize as a businesswoman, if I don't just show up sometimes, I can create all the excuses not to. And online, it's really hard sometimes to not want to want to look your best. But what I did is I just started putting real raw content out that other moms could relate to. And I think that's really what drew people in. They said, oh my goodness, she showed up without makeup on. She's shown up in her pajamas with her hair a mess, and she's putting a meal in the slow cooker for her family. If she can do this, I can do it. So I believe that's kind of the draw from other people to me. And then my passion was much deeper rooted than just the meal, Mark. And I think I've explained that to you. Now, if you want me to, I can share a little bit
Sure.
about that. as well. Okay, so I started using the hashtag Crazy Busy Mama just to be able to find my content. So people would hear my name. I started my videos out with Crazy Busy Mama here, and then I would show a meal, how to put a meal together in a very quick format, and then always try to pan over to the table where my family was. I also started using the hashtag called Reclaim the Table. And that's so incredibly important because as our kids grew up, we have four children. And as our kids started to get older and go to other friends' homes, they would come back and they would say, people don't sit around the table like we do, mom and dad. Like we've always grown up with dinner time a priority. I was the mean mom that always said you have to be here at dinner time. And sometimes, Mark, that happened at 4:30 in the afternoon right after school. And sometimes it didn't happen until 9:30. It just kind of depends on our schedule of activities for that evening. But we found that to be a unique thing for our family. And my late husband and I at that time were all like, how is that not the norm? Like, how is this? What is going on when you get to your friends' homes? And they would say, well, we would just, they make dinner if they did. They would do takeout. And they would have dinner just kind of in the kitchen and you could eat whenever you wanted to, or eat around the TV, or eat and bring it to play games. Basically, they're taking their food and going to their rooms to eat it by themselves. And we thought, oh my goodness. And so the passion was rooted with Reclaim the Table because I really, truly believe when a family sits down together and has a meal together, that's where the foundation is built. All great change begins at the dinner table, if you ask me. That's where your foundational values start to take place, where you're able to have those conversations with your kiddos. And maybe it's not always a fun conversation. Maybe there's disciplinary action involved in that dinner time table as well, but it's the idea that we're sitting down and we're grouping and we're coming as we are. And that's a very biblical thing too. You come as you are accepted. We want to be able to share a meal with you and love on you as a mom and dad would. So it was a very passion of mine to kind of reclaim the table, have that intentional time each and every evening with my family in hopes that my Crazy Busy Mama meals would be so simple and not hard to put together. Listen, I'm not a Pinterest worthy mom. I'm just a real mom, a crazy busy mama that's putting a meal together in hopes that I get that time with my family around the table. And I'm encouraging that very same thing for my viewer.
That's amazing that your friends, your kids' friends were saying that. Do you hear stories from moms who say, hey, I was doing that, but because of you, we're sitting down now?
Yeah, well, it gives me chills because I get messages almost every day that say, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for helping me realize that it's not about the dinner, it's more about the time. And that's the thing. I don't consider myself a foodie. Of course, I've got my food blog that you can go on at crazybusymama.com and check out all sorts of amazing recipes. But I really try to keep them as simple as possible because the reality is where we want the time, us moms, and I can speak for all parents, where we run the time with our kids is around the table, not in the kitchen, working hard all day, creating a Pinterest worthy meal. And so as I started sharing that, I did get an influx of messages, and I still do to this day, of people saying, thank you for helping me realize how important it was to get my family around the table again. We haven't eaten around the table for the last couple of years. And because of your platform, because of you sharing why it's so important. And now fast forward to kind of where I am today after losing my husband and not realizing that journey that I was walking through really allowed God to be able to give us time together in so many ways. Is such a blessing that people are like, I'm so incredibly glad that you taught me that because I'm now implementing that with my family too.
So it sounds like you pretty consciously have tried to avoid the sort of Martha Stewart, everything is perfect, this is from my garden, et cetera, et cetera.
Absolutely. That is not real. I mean, hey, more kudos to Martha Stewart. That's incredible, but I am not Martha Stewart. And I think most women, moms in the thick of it, would absolutely not be able to relate to that. Do they think it's pretty? And do they think it's amazing? Are they maybe inspired by it? Possibly, possibly. I want people to look at my platform and say, oh my goodness, if she can do it, I can do it. I don't want to be someone that they put on a pedestal. I want somebody that they can look at and say, that feels like my life. that feels like something that I could do. And if she can do it, I can do it too.
Yeah, but how do you have to be careful not to go too far down that road? I'm sure it's tempting at times to want to make everything look better than it is. Do you have to kind of resist that temptation? Do you feel it creeping in as you get more and more successful?
That's a great question. I do kind of always feel kind of a natural, just part of me wants to show up as my best self. Okay. That's always been my personality, always putting my best foot forward. But I also realize that putting my best foot forward is being all that God has created me to be. And sometimes that is very real and very raw. And sometimes that is not put together. And I think the world needs to see more of people not put together with all their P's and Q's in order on social media, because it really is very easy to get sucked into this trap of comparison, especially on social media as you're scrolling through your phone. I mean, I see it with my teen girls, I see it with my boys too. So I think it doesn't matter girl or boy, that comparison trap can definitely be there. And so as I'm scrolling, the last thing that I want to do, I can speak for me, I can't speak for you, Mark, but if I'm following somebody on social media and all that they post is perfect, or all that they post is like something that I can't relate to, it's really easy for me to feel down on myself. And the last thing that I want to do is provide content that makes somebody feel bad about themselves. So when I struggle, to go back and answer your question, when I struggle to be my authentic self or to show up a mess some days or to show my house in disarray, I remember the girl, I remember the mom, I remember the other person on the other screen, and the craving they have for authenticity. Oh my goodness, it's never been like this before. People want to see really, truly the behind the scenes. And what's incredible is kind of funny, if you follow me for any amount of time, you will start to see like a behind the scenes kind of footage start to come in. Of course, we kind of try to make things like put together. So, like, you're interviewing me for your podcast, and this is kind of put together, right? And so I've got my clothing rack over here that I do all my try on hauls, and I've got like my cookbooks and stuff over here with different campaigns I'm doing. So I'm not going to put that right here. But what I do is I try to, again, show up as my authentic self, and even take my phone and show kind of the behind the scenes footage of like, hey, this is really truly what life looks like behind the scenes. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I don't ever want to be someone that is looked at or scrolled upon, and that viewer says, "Oh my goodness, I can't relate. Oh my goodness, they make me feel terrible about myself." Because I'm telling you, when I follow people like that, it's not a long follow. It's usually an unfollow, or it makes me feel really terrible about myself.
Yeah, I don't know if she quite realizes this, but my son and I watch Meghan Markle like for the sheer entertainment value of it because it's so over the top.
Yes.
We just kind of sit and laugh at the whole thing because she's making the perfect this and the perfect that, and everything's perfect, and it's not even her house. It's a pretend house, and I don't think she quite understands that. That
Right.
that's part of her viewership is people like us.
Yes. Yes.
So.
Agreed. Agreed.
That brings up an interesting question. You obviously have kids that are very active with you and on their own. It's got to be, first of all, it's got to be hard to be attacked personally, but it's got to be hard to see your kids because people are so cruel in the comment section, I think, on some of the things you post. Not a whole lot, but some.
They do. Yep.
Yeah,
There are,
how do you
yeah,
develop that thick skin?
that's a really great question too. I think for me, some days it's better. I'm just gonna be really honest with you. Some days I'm better than others. So I know my limits, I know my personal limits, and I know where my true identity is rooted, and my true identity is rooted in Christ. And so I know that when people are just being keyboard warriors, that I know that if they have nothing nice to say, they absolutely would never say that to my face. They're just behind the scenes doing what they can to stir up, or what they call rage bait. It's like did you know that's the word of 2025, rage bait? And so if they want to rage bait me, I am not going to play into that, but I will let them say what they want to say, and I just try to let it roll off. So what's awesome about it though is I do have a very loyal following. And so when I put content out there and people do say ugly things, I typically have very loyal followers that will go in and defend me without me saying a word, which is a
Mhm.
really great feeling. I think, again, showing my real, raw, authentic self, when people see, people that those keyboard warriors start to give hate toward me, that's when people come in, my loyal followers will come in and defend me because they realize she's just like me, and they can kind of see themselves there. It's one thing when it's directed toward me. It's another thing when it's directed toward my kids. Mama Bear has a tendency to come out, and I have my two older children have decided to be pretty public on social media now. They have kind of followed in my footsteps, which I'm very proud of. But I also say that comes with a caveat of like knowing that you need to have thick skin. And so I just really encourage them to, when you're a content creator, it's about creating content and getting off the platform. Of course, you want to be able to take care of your audience and your followers and give back, but you're giving back by providing content too. It is none of your business what other people think of you. And so that is very loud and clear on social media too. If they don't like something, then that doesn't mean that I change or adapt to what they want me to be. It is that I'm called to be who God's created to me to be, and then stand in that identity.
Yeah, I'm not sure that human beings are created to be able to withstand hearing 10 million people's opinions about you.
That's right.
You're in the village in Italy or wherever, you have like three or four people who might say bad things about you, and you'd find out about it in the gossip world. But to have millions of people, I just can't imagine being an uber celebrity these days. It just must be
Yeah.
a horrific enterprise.
Yeah, I would think, and I don't consider myself a celebrity at all, but I do have a pretty good platform. And again, I'm very fortunate to have a lot of really kind people, but there are those that are not and continue to be. And so it's just something that I have to really ward off every day. And I just have to really say where is my rooted identity, and being able to maybe look at those comments and not really take them personal, or even guard myself completely. If I know I'm having a really hard day, I'm not going to go into my comments that day. If I'm feeling really good that day or uplifted that day, I might give myself 5 or 10 minutes, but I always guard it. I
Mhm.
always say, okay, I'm going to set my alarm on my phone and I'm going to spend 15 minutes in my comments, or I'm going to spend 15 minutes in my messages. And here's the thing, Mark. Publicly people see the comments, but there are some nasty, nasty messages that come through too. So it really blew my mind as I started to grow in my platform and gain popularity, that people would actually take the extra step, not just to be a keyboard warrior on the outside publicly, but actually take the time to message you. That's where I think it hurts the most. And I think people, do they not realize that you're going to eventually see that message? And so sometimes I will respond and be like, hey, did you never think that I would see this message? I'm
Mm.
just human,
Mm.
I'm human. I need grace just like you do.
Yeah. So when you guys were first starting out, I think that your husband was working at a bank, and then you
Yeah.
kind of got him to join the business and come home.
Yeah.
How did you guys talk through all these things, and what are we going to do, and what are our limitations, and do we turn off the devices from this time to this time? Did you guys have those kinds of conversations early on?
We did not. We kind of figured it out as we went. So, so in 2012, I was able to bring my husband home from full-time banking. He supported a family of six. He was the breadwinner for a family of six, and we dove right into all sorts of online marketing and businesses, and kind of morphed from there. But as we learned, I mean, we were ignorance on fire. We were excited. We were workers. We were a power couple. Like, I look back in the time that, like, what a true gift God gave me and him. And we were such a power couple that we were so hungry for knowledge. We were hungry to change people's lives. We were hungry to just be passionate about something and build something and create something together. We didn't have it all planned out. And I think that, I don't know, it could be part of my personality, but I think that people say, that they did have it all planned out would probably be telling you a little bit of a fib, because the reality is, in this type of industry, you can't figure it out. You literally have got to jump in with both feet and trust the process. And you grow and you swim from there. And so as we started to realize, wow, there are really mean people out there, or oh my goodness, we're all of a sudden cranky when we shouldn't be, or whatever, then we would start looking at each other and say, okay, we're out of our comments today. Or it was great to kind of lean on one another and say, I got you today. If you're having a bad day, I got you in the comments today. But taking boundaries is so incredibly important, especially in doing what I do for a living, because it can really suck you in if you're not careful. So boundaries are important. And talking about that is definitely important. But I don't know that we had a plan. We just kind of figured it out as we went.
Were you both very entrepreneurial, or where do you get your entrepreneurial impulses from?
That's a great question too. Yes, both of us were. I believe I was more so than my husband was. My husband was very kind of type A, but then not. I mean, a good mix of both. He kind of was the brains behind everything that I did. I'm not trying to discount or discredit myself, because I think if he were sitting right here, he'd be like, babe, you could totally do this too. We were often, it's kind of a funny little story, but we had a mentor in one of our businesses that looked at both of us and said, how in the world are y'all married? Like, both of you are so outgoing. Both of you are very driven. Both of you, just have a fire about you. And typically it's like opposites attract, right? So Quinn and I were very opposite in some ways, but very, very similar in a lot of ways. And so he kind of kept me, I'm the dreamer. I dreamed really big, and he kind of pulled it back in, the banker side of him, to kind of strategize, where I was like, we're going to do it. We're going to jump in and we'll figure it out as we go. So he was more of the strategic planner than I was. I was more of the, hey, I got a dream. Let's go after it. So that particular entrepreneurial spirit, neither one of us came from a background or a family that were entrepreneurs. I just knew from a very young age in our dating relationship, when I was 17 years old, I told my boyfriend at the time that became my future husband, I said, hey, if if we want to go any further in this relationship, if we're thinking like any commitment, I just want you to know, if we ever get married and have children, I want to be a stay-at-home mom. And he didn't run away. And he didn't run away. I think most 17-year-old young boys would run away. Like, I think of my son, he's 17. If a girl said that to him, I would probably be like, as a mom, I'd be like, that's really young. But I knew from a very young age, God planted in my heart, I wanted to be two things. That was number one, a mama. I wanted to be a mom, and I wanted to be able to be at home with my children if I could. And he came from a single mom background. And his mom worked really, really hard. He didn't see her a whole lot. And he didn't, without hesitation, he said, absolutely, I'll do whatever it takes to make that possible. Even if that's eating PB&Js for dinner, we're going to make that possible. And so that was our dream together. And so as we developed in our relationship, we got married, that dream came to fruition. But the amazing thing about it is God didn't only allow me to be able to be a stay-at-home mom, he allowed me to be able to be a stay-at-home family, because I would be able to offer that opportunity to my husband just about 5 years later after we had our children. We had just had our fourth baby, and when she was one, I was able to bring him home, or give him the opportunity to be able to do this full-time with me. And so it was always a passion of mine to be a stay-at-home mama. And God gave me that gift through a lot of hard work and a lot of dedication. But he also allowed us to be able to be a stay-at-home family.
Now, in terms of the content and the food and such, we talked about kind of the Martha Stewart, everything is perfect. This is from my back garden. You're a little bit more of, I got this from Walmart yesterday. I'm going to dump this in here, put this in here. But now, when we're in the Maha era that we're in now with Bobby Kennedy, and everything is, there's some kind of a dye and everything, and now we're all on guard. How does that impact what you do? Are you more concerned than you were before about that aspect of things and making sure there aren't red dye 40 or whatever it is?
Yeah, that's a really good question too. So, of course, I get all sorts of opinions online about, red dye, or this should be gluten-free, or, everybody's got their diets or structures that they follow. And I am a Midwestern girl. I grew up on Midwestern food. I have been fine with Midwestern food, and I'm very thankful that no one in my family has major allergies or anything like that. That's not to discount eating healthier or doing all of those things. Of course, when I'm choosing recipes, I always look at alternatives for people. I personally will use alternatives for myself when making them. So if they're looking for, a slow cooker meal with lower sodium, there's lower sodium options available. And I talk about those if I'm making those for my family. I want to be able to feed my family the very best of food, but the reality is, even the very best of foods, there's something wrong with them.
Mhm,
We
mhm.
live in a very fallen and broken world. And so part of reclaiming the table is, again, getting my family around the table with a home cooked meal versus through the drive-through. So something that's going to be a little bit better than the drive-through, right? Adding some green vegetables or something in there and doing the best I know how to do as a mom without going over the top. And of course, we pray over our food, and that doesn't mean that, like, that all of a sudden our heavy cream meal is now low fat. I'm not saying that at all. But what I'm saying is a little bit of moderation goes a long way. And so, am I concerned about our foods? Absolutely, I am. I'm a mom. I think if I were to say that I weren't, it would be a fib, in this conversation. But I don't obsess over it. I do the best that I know how, and I leave the rest to God.
Yeah, there's just so many things we're learning every day. Like I didn't really understand how dangerous like water, bottled water sitting in plastic. Like apparently that's some huge danger if it's sitting
Right.
in your car and it's causing cancer. I mean, all these things that we had no idea about.
Right. And I think
Um,
we can live our lives kind of freaked out all the time.
right,
And then we're not drinking that water bottle, but we're gonna go grab something, at the convenience store that's also,
right.
just it just never ends. It never ends. So I can obsess and I can worry about all these things, or I can just worry about what's right in front of me, taking care of what I have right in front of me, blessing it, and spending time with my family.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you had a tragedy a couple of years back. I'm not sure exactly when, but it was within the last few years. And obviously, it's probably still raw, but to the extent you feel comfortable talking about it, your husband passed away rather suddenly, and
Yes.
he had had some health issues leading up to it, I think, though, right?
Yeah. Yes and no. So he had COVID in 2020, much like most of us did. Had a pretty hard bout of it, was never hospitalized. However, I did bring him to the emergency room with very high tachycardia, that wouldn't come down.
Mm.
That left him with, after he recovered, that left him with irregular heartbeats on an occasion. We were told by the cardiologist that they were considered kind of normal, that there was nothing that they could really do. He had different types of arrhythmias. He called it a potpourri of arrhythmias. And that potpourri of arrhythmias, it became very debilitating. And to 2023, he started, he would do physical labor. He had started a business with my kids during the COVID era of everything shutting down. He wanted to teach my kids, through a new business that he had started, that you can earn money no matter what anybody says. You can get out there and you can earn your way through hard work. And so he started teaching the kids all those things through our business called Conway Family Properties. But there were times that he'd bring them out to do physical work that it would just take him out for the day. And he didn't quite understand. And so after lots of doctor's appointments, we had come to realize that he had had long COVID, is what they had called it. Now, some doctors would say that, some would not say that. It was very taboo kind of thing of what they would say, particularly about that. But he had none of these issues prior to that. And so, in April of 2024, my husband suffered cardiac arrest at our home. Terrible, terrible, unexpected. So even though he did have some long COVID issue, wasn't anything, like, we were reassured and told that nothing was life threatening and that he would be fine, that he would be okay. And so, and that was after specialists. He tried getting into the Mayo Clinic, asking about, these particulars. They denied him at the Mayo Clinic, saying that they didn't take on cases that they didn't deem they could be successful with, which kind of left us kind of in a quandary.
Mm.
And so, he went into cardiac arrest, and we lost him that
So,
evening. And
I mean, you really attribute it to COVID. He was a healthy, normal person before this.
absolutely,
Mm.
absolutely, yeah.
And do the doctors acknowledge that, or are they trying to deny that that's the connection?
So you kind of have both. So very few doctors will say this is absolutely COVID related, and then others will say it's idiopathic. They don't understand.
Hmm.
Idiopathic ventricular fibrillation is what they call it. So he had in 2023, because he had had so many irregulars, heart rate. He had seen an electrical cardiologist and a regular cardiologist. They had put in a heart monitor, like a surgical heart monitor that they could monitor any sort of irregularities, and they would regularly be able to read those.
Hmm.
But they still couldn't tell where it was coming from. So they just called it a potpourri of arrhythmias that were idiopathic. So in other words, they did not know.
Wow.
Um, so the evening that he passed away, that recorder recorded an idiopathic ventricular fibrillation, and it was sustained for 2.5 seconds, and he lost consciousness, and we couldn't get him back.
So you were doing everything right. I mean, you were going to the doctors and trying to get to the problem.
Yes, and that's the frustrating part. I mean, I sit here on his side of the desk here because we work together at home, and I have I mean, I could just pick it up, a whole medical record that he sent in. He
Hmm.
submitted it to the Mayo Clinic and text with the doctor that says that they denied him. So yeah, there's so much of this, Mark, that just frustrates me, and really makes me spiral. I've really had to really do some work these last couple of years of just kind of undoing that. Because I just think, what if, right? What if they would have seen him? What if they would have done this? What if they would have, I could what if myself forever for the rest of my life. The unfortunate reality is, here we are today, right? And I look at that and I think I can either look at it one of two ways. I can question for the rest of my life, or I can just know that God has a divine plan. I don't know what that is. I don't know what that is, and I question it. Yes, but I can walk out that plan and know that, like Quentin, he's in his heavenly home, and that he if he wanted to come back, he wouldn't come back. And that, from a human's perspective, feels so hard to hear. Um, but he is rejoicing with our Father now. And so his chapter was closed. God called him home. Had it been cardiac arrest, had it been a car accident, however it would have been, I feel that God had his days numbered just like he has all of ours. And he would have called him home in some way. But yes, it's so frustrating because I go back and I look at medical records. I hear, recorded doctors' conversations, that we would go to specialists and we would record all of that. And just listening to that just makes me so sick to think, like, what could we have done?
Hmm. So then this horrible event happens, and now you're thrust into the world of you have to say, am I going to continue this online work we're doing? Am I going to stop? How do I grieve publicly? All these questions must have been just percolating all around you.
Oh, so much of it. So, I had very loving family members and friends that said, I hope you never have to go back on social media again.
Mm.
And my instant response was, what did you just say? Like, that's my livelihood. That's what we did for a living. And so it was really hard to go back in front of everybody. And there are days where I'm still crying. I'll wake up and I share a little bit of my heart, like what God's put on my heart every morning in the morning with a cup of coffee. And some days I'm really sad. And some days it's like grief just hits you and kind of knocks you out. And I don't shy away from that. I don't shy away from the real raw grief of what I'm going through, but I also try to share the hope that I have in Christ, and knowing that, like, I don't have to grieve feeling hopeless. I can be hopeful in my grief. And so I did have a decision to make. And I took a few weeks off, which sounds like nothing compared to, like, from the outside looking in, like, oh, you took a couple weeks off, hey? A couple weeks off for me, everything that I do is commission based. Campaigns, everything that I do is commission based. And so for me, I needed that time, but I needed to really feel like God's pull on what to do. I never once felt like I should quit doing what I was doing. I felt like I needed to kind of carry on the mission together because Reclaim the Table, although my table looks a lot different than it ever did, and there is a very large part of that missing at our table now, is still a blessing. That table is still a blessing, and the gift that we had was still a blessing that we can remember what God has done in our life and knowing what He'll do in our lives going forward. But I had a decision to make, and I was prompted by my youngest daughter again. I'm going to give her credit again because she gave me the how-to on TikTok, right? And she taught me how to start this whole crazy busy mama thing by making short videos. And I was sitting in my office just like this, but piles upon piles everywhere, just in tears. And I can remember my daughter because my three kids at the time, I have four, but one came home from college and was going local to college to finish out, and my three were still going to high school. And my youngest had come through the office door and she saw me upset, and she's obviously upset. They're trying to get ready to go to school the next day, trying to figure out what life looks like now. And she said, Mom, when are you going to go back? When are you going to go back online? When are you going to go back to posting? And from the outside, hearing that, it may sound very silly of a question, but for her, she needed me to like step out and show them that they could do it too. And so that very next morning, I very tearfully shaking, and I said, God, like, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say because again, when you work in a business like I do and everything is online, everything that you say matters, right? There are certain keywords, Mark, that I cannot talk about on Facebook, on Instagram, on TikTok. COVID's one of those, long COVID's one of those, vaccination's one of those, not vaccinated. Any of those hot topics could totally take my platform away from me.
Hmm.
And I knew as a single mom now, as a sole income earner for my family, I had to be really careful about my words that I chose. And I didn't want to put myself in a situation where I couldn't back out of. And so that very next morning, as I was getting my kids ready for school, my daughter actually was in the video with me that morning. I came back online, and right before I did, I just prayed. I said, God, allow me to have pain, like purpose in my pain. Like, I don't know what my next steps are. I don't know what my future holds, but I know who holds me. And if I can just start sharing this, like I felt like it was kind of like mission field. I don't know how else to explain it, but if I could just start sharing with the world, yes, I share with the world real raw content on what my house looked like and what the kitchen looked like and what my meal time looked like with four kids. I need to be very real and raw about what grief looks like. And I don't even know what that looks like. So that was a very scary thing for me. It still is. I'll be honest with you, it still is. It's not easy. But I do feel like I've been called. And so I had to turn around that camera that morning, making a cup of coffee with tears in my eyes, and my daughter in the background, getting them ready for school. I realized it was a different calling then. I realized Crazy Busy Mama wasn't just about recipes. It wasn't just about fun new tips or tricks for your home or, whatever influencing that would encapsulate. It was so much more than that. It would be a real step into seeing what real raw grief looked like if people wanted to be invited in. And so that's what I started doing.
It's got to be hard though, because people are very judgmental. I'm sure you would have people say, "Hey, why are you laughing so soon after your husband's death?" Or "Why are you talking about recipes?" Or how do you even know what's appropriate and what's not?
Everybody's got an opinion, don't they? It's
Right.
unfortunate and fortunate. I mean, we all have opinions, right?
Yeah.
Um, it is hard. It is hard. Um,
Like
I
how many
will,
day how many time, much time has to pass before you can smile or laugh? Like what are the rules there, right? 30 days, 90 days? It's just
right.
very bizarre. Even with Erica Kirk, we're
It
saying the
is.
same thing. Like
Right.
She laughed too soon after her husband passed away. It's like I don't know how you judge that.
Yep. And here's the thing, the people that are judging that haven't walked through grief. They haven't walked through it. And they haven't walked through grief. If they've walked through it at all, they haven't walked through grief at that level. Grief is so weird. I don't even know how to explain it. There are days that you feel like you've just been taken out, that nothing can bring you back. And there are moments where you have this reprieve of some sort of sliver of joy or happy. Um, and what I will say is this, the people that hate on that, because I'm confused too. I will just say, I'm with you. I'm confused too. I don't know how I'm smiling. It's the joy of the Lord. That's literally what it is. Because I don't know what I would do. I don't know how I would walk through this without having him by my side. I wouldn't know what to do. And honestly, I still don't know. And so I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I mean, I've experienced that firsthand. I didn't expect to lose my husband when he was 46 years old to cardiac arrest. Like, I didn't expect any of that. But I do know that the people that hate on that are the ones that have never had to walk through it themselves at the level that I'm currently walking through it. And I have talked about that on social media as well. I actually had my son in the video along with me, and he even said, yeah, this is my mom. Sometimes she's crying, sometimes she's smiling, and that's grief. That's grief for me. Sometimes I go to school and I don't feel like I can stay there, and my mom comes to pick me up, and sometimes I get there and I think I can do this today. And so the reality is, it's tricky. It's a whirlwind of emotions. It's a roller coaster of a ride. I wouldn't wish it on anybody, but the reality is that each and every one of us are going to walk through grief. And so we need to be very mindful of how we judge other people, because if we're judging them by their grief, someday we're going to be walking in those shoes as well.
Mm, mm. Yeah, it just seems to me there are some societal expectations of a grieving period where you're just supposed to like disappear from public view,
Yep.
and then you're supposed to come back like 3 months later or 6 months later or whatever. But that's your job, so you couldn't do that. You had to come back to your job.
Yes. And so I could either have come back to a job crying in my pajamas, talking on my can't like talking to my audience with a camera flipped around, sitting in my living room grieving, or I could have figured out how to get myself together and go to a 9 to 5 job.
Hmm.
You get to choose your hard.
Right.
Life's hard. Life's hard. But the reality is, friends, you get to choose your hard. What do you choose? I choose a hard that I can show up in my pajamas, cry on camera if I need to. I'm not going to try and hide that. I'm going to share my journey, my grief journey in a very real, raw way, because I want me and my life to overflow. My life's not perfect. So the people that would say, I can remember, because Quentin and I would always talk about our date day was on Tuesday. And so all of our kids would be at school and we'd go have coffee before we kind of started our day. And that was our date day. We'd have our brainstorming time together. And then we would, he owned a traditional business as well. And so we did this full time together. We did a lot of different things. And he would go off and I would go off. We would have that date morning on Tuesdays. And I can remember haters back in the day would say, oh, must be nice. Oh, your life's perfect. Or it must be nice to have a marriage that someone wants to spend time with you. I mean, just ugly stuff, right? Well, the reality is hurt people hurt people. I mean, you've heard that before. Hurt people hurt people. So they're saying that because it's a reflection of how they feel on the inside. And so when you fast forward to today, and people are like, oh, well, okay, they followed me for a while and I've seen that. My life's not perfect. And anybody's life can turn on a dime, whether they want it to or not. It's going to turn on a dime. And you can either choose to continue to keep showing up, or you can choose to succumb to your bed and put the covers over your head. And trust me, there are days and moments and times that I do that. But as soon as I feel like I'm getting stuck, I force myself out, put my feet on the ground, and I get out of bed and I start sharing something. I find purpose in my pain. If I can share something with somebody that resonates with somebody, that helps me to show up as a better version of myself. That helps me to continue to do what I'm doing But again, I feel like I don't know that everybody could do it. I do feel like it's a calling and a mission of mine to grieve in a very public, raw way.
And do you have certain ground rules with your kids, like, hey, mom, don't shoot us this time, or do they ever have any qualms about it or ask you not to shoot something, or how do you handle that?
Another great question. So my kids have kind of grown up with, doing what we do for 15 years, but I am never that mom that's going to put a camera in my kid's face if they're not wanting it. I'm very mindful of my kids and protecting their privacy, protecting, um, especially in their grief now. Like, I will never share, like, I will publicly speak about my own grief. And there are some things, even though as real and raw and vulnerable and open as I am, there are some things that I haven't shared because I'm not ready to share. But I absolutely will not share about my children unless they've given me permission to. So I have older kids that are now kind of taken on to social platforms and sharing. And, if they've shared something publicly, then I might piggyback off of that. But I will never share or put my kids in a situation where they don't want to be on the camera or sharing about their depths of grief or just their personal life. It's really
Mhm.
important to me.
Yeah, because sometimes you'll shoot, I think you shoot in the morning sometimes when you're just like everyone's waking up and but they don't seem to mind. So it's not like they're saying, "Keep me off camera, mom," right?
Right, right. I've never, I've never experienced my kids saying, take me off camera because I think I'm pretty in tune with my kids, just like any mom would be, right?
Mhm.
I'm not going to do that to them. I'm not going to disrespect them, just like I wouldn't want them to disrespect me. So if I know it's a moment of privacy or a moment of uh, the camera doesn't need to be around, then I absolutely will never do that. We have done fun campaigns before for brands, and I'll
Mhm.
ask them if they want to be part of it because a lot of brands will ask me, hey, how many children do you have? What are the ages? And before I would even put them into a script or into, that particular campaign, I would definitely get the permission of my kids and say, hey, I'm doing a campaign for Tyson Chicken. Would you like to be part of it? And I would say that often. And I remember one of my kids saying, well, duh, why would I not want to be? So I think my kids are pretty much like Quentin and I are as far as like wanting to be on camera. But
Mhm.
again, I'm very sensitive of that too if they don't want to be.
Well, what are your future plans? What areas do you want to get into that you haven't gotten into yet?
That's a really good question too. So, this year, obviously, this past year after losing my husband was a complete fog. This second year has been harder than I anticipated, if I'm going to be honest with you.
Mm.
And if you're watching this and you're grieving, I would say the second year is probably harder than the first, just because everything comes to realization kind of full circle of like, wow, this is really my life. I can be driving down the road and my brain will compartmentalize something and I'll just be like, I'll text Quentin about that later, or I'm going to call him. And then it just dawns on me that that's not my life anymore. And so, so I came into 2026 thinking life might be a little easier, and it's been a little harder than I anticipated.
Mm.
But with that being said, I still have major goals, and I'm the kind of girl that like I love to be productive. I love to push myself. I think it helps in my grief process to have something to kind of create and look forward to. I know you encouraged me about a year ago to start writing books, so I started putting some thoughts down on paper. I think writing a book is definitely in my future. I'm going to put that out there for you. But I also have a podcast that I'm going to pick back up. So Quentin and I started a podcast called Feeling Our Way Forward in 2023, about a year before his passing. I'm going to pick that back up. My daughter's now working full time with me with the Crazy Busy Mama mission. And so she's going to help me kind of bring and birth that back into my Feeling Forward podcast. So I'm going to start a podcast this year, and I'm going to continue to keep putting my thoughts down on paper that might just morph into a book.
What about, have you ever thought of doing a cooking show?
Oh my goodness. Well, I do little mini cooking shows at my house every day. So absolutely would be so fun. So I've got kind of a fun little thing this coming into this week. I'm going to be going and doing a cooking segment for a particular I won't say their names right now, but for a particular show, it's not like on TV or anything like that. But so I definitely could see that in the future for sure. Definitely cooking is a kind of a byproduct of my passion. My passion is that table time with your family. And obviously cooking, you have to have food to be able to sit down with your family. So a cooking show would be awesome.
It's really amazing, isn't it? In the old days, think about it, we've kind of experienced the democratization of media content. Because in the old days, you would have waited to get noticed by a local TV station and then Good Morning, whatever it might be. There was a whole way to do things. And this kind of short circuits the process where, I mean, you're in the Midwest, you don't have a media background, whatever, but you've been able to gather an audience just because of the way the social media is and the internet is. We're in an amazing time.
We really are. And it goes back to what my late husband would say to my kids all the time. He would always say, there's nothing that you can't accomplish or do in today's world. All you've got to do is YouTube it. All you've got to do is figure it out. Like, again, going back to our podcast, failing our way forward. How do we find success? How have I continued to find success is because I'm failing forward. Every failure mounts up to a success. If we look at failure and kind of redefine it, failure is actually a very positive thing because that allows you to be able to go forward and learn and revamp and learn and pivot as you go. So failing your way forward. And 100%, I'm so grateful for the time that we live in today because I can literally at my fingertips have a phone in my hand to be able to earn an income if you want to and to create an audience if you want to. And so, yeah, I don't have to wait for someone to come to me. I go and I make my own way. If you really want something and you're willing to work hard at it, there's nothing that you can't accomplish.
On a typical day, how many people would you say access the content on all the different platforms? Is it?
Oh goodness. That'd be really hard for me. Now, I could tell you probably Clinton would sit here and be like, he would rattle off a number for you.
You would know the
I have
numbers.
about, yeah, I love numbers. I have about 4 million total followers on all of my platforms combined.
Mhm.
I also have a blog that's visited about 180 sessions every month. So any bloggers out there might understand and realize what that concept's all about. So it's really hard for me to really define what that is, but I would say on a daily basis, I mean, a million because the different platforms that I'm posting on, thousands of views, hundreds of thousands of views. I have a website that goes back to all the content that I'm producing. So it captures a really wide audience.
I mean, I would say you're like competing against morning shows. Wouldn't, I mean, morning show viewership is not that great. So that's a crazy world we're living in,
That
where
is.
it's like your competition might be Good Morning America or the Today Show or something in terms of numbers.
Well, that feels, yeah, I mean, that feels really awesome for you to say that and humbling. But I think in today's world, yes, I think we do have an advantage being able to just kind of put our content out there and not wait for that middleman. And so I think if anybody's out there listening to this and think, I want to do that, go out there, try it. It takes a lot of grit, determination, and continuing to keep paving the way. That's probably the hardest thing about what I do, aside from the haters that we talked about, is just having the determination and the discipline to show up every day. But really, in the world that we live in, you don't need the middleman anymore.
Yeah, that's right. The middleman is no longer. Yeah, even Justin Bieber. That's an example of in the past you would have had to go through, get signed to a label, come out to LA, blah blah, and he's literally posting YouTube videos of himself as a teenager with his mom's help, and that
Yeah,
becomes Justin Bieber. So it's a whole different
right.
way of reaching the public without the
Absolutely.
gatekeepers.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of number one songs on the charts now that have come from TikTok, just because of an independent artist that's willing to put themselves out there. Um, when you put yourself out there, you can get both hate and love, but definitely the pros outweigh the cons.
What would you say, just as we kind of wind things down, what would you say? We've talked a little bit about it earlier, but what is your main message overall in terms of not just the table, but you? What would you say your sort of life theme is that you want to impart to your viewers?
Hmm. So I think the one main thing is just keep stepping. You're never going to have it all figured out. when you think you have it all figured out, it's going to change up on you. To just keep stepping and keep trusting, and keep going. Don't stop. I think so many people want and have these big ideas, but they're not willing to do the work behind it. So just keep stepping, because eventually you keep stepping, you're going to build those muscles that you didn't even think that you know you needed, and you're gaining the strength that you never thought that you knew you had to be able to get where you want to go.
Yeah, that's a great the imperfectness of it, right? That
Yeah.
sounds like if that's your theme. We're in
Yes.
a world where everybody is trying to project the perfect vacation and the perfect this and the perfect that, and you're just reveling. You're reveling in the imperfectness of it all, and people seem to be responding to that.
And don't you think it's because people are tired of the perfect? We really are. We love the imperfections, even though we try to filter them and do all we can to get rid of it. But the reality is that's what makes us human. And that's what makes us intrigued. And that's what makes us attracted to other people's those little imperfections. And so it's about failing your way forward and realizing and reframing the idea of what failure truly is. And failure is truly it's just someone that never gives up. You just never give up. You just keep stepping to get where you want to go.
It's that quote from Rocky Six. Remember when Rocky is talking to his son, and
I do remember that.
it's an amazing quote that I think he thinks is one of the greatest of the entire series. But I was just thinking of that as you were giving that wrap up. But thanks for stopping by today, and
Oh my goodness.
it's great to hear your story and learn about what you do. And let's keep in touch.
It was an honor. Thank you very much.
All right, great to be with you.
All right.